Dun, dun.
Here, Martin, the live stream is running when you're ready to start the meeting.
Awesome, thank you. I'm just trying to figure out how to fix my background.
How was the macaroni cheese, Rob?
Oh, it was so good. I'm an amazing cook.
Excellent.
I can cook one whole thing now.
Was that the Kraft macaroni and cheese?
No, I made it from scratch. I only make things from scratch. That's how skilled I am.
Oh no, I'm not gonna go there.
Yeah, I know. All right, it looks like it's 6:30. Councillor Jansen, can you turn on your camera? Councillor Jansen I thought I saw him. Is he not? Does anybody see him? Perhaps he's not joining us this evening. I thought I saw him at one point.
I don't believe he's joined the meeting.
Okay, then we will start without him.
Mayor, I chatted with him a couple of minutes ago. He said he was going to join us. So
yeah, same here.
Okay. So
I'm not sure what's happened to him, but it is 6:30, so we'll start, and then hopefully he'll log on in the next minute or two. I'm going to call to order the council agenda and council meeting for Monday, August 30th, 2021. And I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the shared traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. We are still meeting virtually right now, so I am going to do a roll call. Councillor Baxter.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Parkinson.
I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Logan.
I'm here.
And Councillor Jansen, are you on with us yet? No. Councillor Day has expressed she was, for health reasons, unable to attend this evening. And Councillor Kobayashi is campaigning as the Liberal candidate for the next federal election. And we'll also be dealing with that on 6.1. So with that, I will look to council for approval of the near term, long term, and regular council meeting for today. Moved by Councillor Logan. Sorry, I'm not co-host right now, so I don't have the ability to actually see people's hands. Councillor Baxter, I see Councillor Baxter has seconded it, but I don't have the ability to lower people's hands or anything else. So if staff could make me co-host, that would be great.
You are co-host.
I'm not. It's not letting me lower people's hands or anything like that. So okay, we'll work that through as we move forward. Moving on to 3, which is public participation. We do have several people who have registered to speak today. So I'm going to invite the first person. We only have 20 minutes in total allocated for public participation. So I am going to be doing a timer this evening. So people will have 5 minutes. And I will be cutting you off after 5 minutes. So if you can keep your remarks within that 5 minutes, that would be great. So the first person I will look to is Sarah Sanderson. Sarah, are you on line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can. The floor is yours.
Perfect. I just wanted to address council. I've already spoken last council meeting regarding this, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm here for any questions that may or may not come up.
Great. Thank you. That is in regards to item number... sorry, I'm just looking at, that will be for item number 6.2, council. So Ms. Sanderson is here for that one. Moving on to the next person is Jerry Knott, or I'm hoping Cott. I think I'm not getting your last name right, which I apologize for. It's K-O-T-T. Are you on?
Yes, hello.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. And the floor is yours. And as I said, you have 5 minutes.
All right. I'm trying to figure out how to go about the RVs on city streets parking issue. The council is aware of the situation that I have recently encountered, including, I hope, the correspondence that I sent to corporate services. So I guess the main issue is that the new changes have not been properly communicated to public. They are, the amendment is not in the online version, and it's not in the version that I got by actually going to City Hall and asking for the amendment and the bylaw about traffic in highways, bylaw number 1134. Because of all the other issues that I have outlined in in my letter to corporate services, I think that those amendments should be disregarded because it's just not a fair amendment to RV owners in the Colwood area. It unfairly targets RV owners who are not causing the perceived problems that you were trying to address back in 2020. Okay. Along with that, I also would petition that any RV parking tickets that you may have issued since August 2020 are cancelled and purged from the record because, again, the amendment was not properly communicated, and the new bylaw was not available to residents of Colwood. For any future amendments that affect RV owners, I would prefer that the City Council engages in a meaningful conversation with the owners. You didn't even consider one of the options proposed that I also cite in my submission to the council. So I realize that we need nice, good-looking, clean streets. But I think that the way you went about it was not the right way. The last issue will be redacted from the official correspondence because, according to City Hall staff, it would be possible to identify people involved. So, for privacy reasons, it will be redacted, and it is actually the main problem I have with this whole thing. So we will be continuing with the Chief Administrative Officer and hopefully somebody from the City Council to resolve the issue that I'm not at liberty to discuss. In closing, I believe that the RV parking on city streets is unreasonably restrictive, and if you want my reasoning, it's all in the official correspondence that should be attached to the minutes of this meeting, if I understand the process correctly. That's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So council has received your correspondence. And I know I have spoken with our CAO, Mr. Earl, and staff will be in contact with you tomorrow, Mr. Cott, and we will be working on the process. So this will sort of just begin the conversation rather than that it's an end. And I do expect that staff will be following up with you tomorrow.
Yeah, All right. Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for your time and thanks for contributing today. Council, just before I move on to the final person, the last person who's registered to speak, I made an error in that I needed to actually poll 6.9. 6.9 is not going to be on tonight's agenda. So could we actually, I'm going to go back and just do, just look for approval of the amended agenda with 6.9 removed. And I will look to Ms. Lalonde. Is that the only thing that needed to be pulled this evening?
That is correct, Your Worship.
Great, thank you. So Councillor Logan, you moved the original agenda. Are you comfortable with just moving the, thank you. Councillor Baxter, you're good with the amendment, thank you. So I will call the vote just to any in opposition. Nobody opposed, so that motion passes. Thank you. So we're going to jump back to people who have registered to speak. And the third person that I have on my list is Carol Brown. Carol, are you online?
Yes, hello.
Great, the floor is
Hello.
yours and you have up to 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I'm here representing CENIC, the Citizens Environment Network in Colwood. We wish to acknowledge the good news that there has been such a positive response by the residents of Colwood during 2021 to assess the Clean BC Better Homes Renovation Rebate Program. Well done, Colwood Council and City staff in supporting and promoting this program. Through your participation, you have assisted homeowners in making their homes more energy efficient and to prepare for future changes. CENIC encourages you to support additional funding for this program for the rest of 2021, as recommended by staff, and to wholeheartedly support this program in future years. We are also pleased to see Colwood move forward on the BC Energy Step Code as recommended by staff. We encourage Council to support this staff recommendation and urge Colwood to move to Step 4 and 5 of the code as soon as possible. Not only do we appreciate the efforts put forth by the City of Colwood, but we also recognize the commitment on the part of the BC government to set new construction performance requirements through the BC Energy Step Code to become net zero energy ready by 2032. Level 3 in the Step Code improves building efficiency by 20%. Leaving an 80% increase to be achieved in the next 10 years. If we are to be effective in our community desire and government commitment to reach net zero, we must soon take the next step of requiring Step Code Level 4 and 5. Level 4 will move to requiring a 40% improvement from the 20% code requirements of Level 3. We all need to work together to make this happen. This past July was the hottest month ever recorded on Earth, as reported by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Researchers, engineers, and governments have identified buildings as a key area that can be used to both slow global warming and to mitigate the effects on a warming global climate. Buildings account for 39% of our energy CO2 emissions each year. More efficient, better constructed buildings will help to address those issues. Net zero buildings with thicker walls, more and better insulation, better windows and doors, and efficient heat and ventilation systems such as heat pumps would also help to keep residents comfortable and safe during extreme heat and air quality emergencies like those of which we experienced this year. Thank you for your time this evening. And once again, Scenic wishes to express their true support for the work done by council and staff to help the residents of Colwood deal with the challenges related to climate change today and into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Those were very much appreciated. It's nice to actually hear some of the wonderful positive things that are happening within our community. So thank you for sharing that, Ms. Brown. I'm just before I move on to Mayor's message, I do see that Councillor Jansen has now logged in. So Councillor Jansen, welcome. Could you just give us a verbal so that we can hear you? Or
How's
not?
that? How's that?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. And going back to staff, so I have a couple issues on my end with Zoom right now. I have 2 pages of people. So for example, Councillor Jansen was showing up on page 2 of the things. It's not like, for example, putting all my videos at the top, which it used to. And I do not have the control to be able to control hands. So just so that staff understand, I'm definitely not co-host, or unless Zoom has changed how co-hosting looks. It's certainly not looking like the way I dealt with it at the middle of July. So I may be coming to staff at times just because of technical issues. So moving on to Mayor's message. First of all, welcome back. What a summer it was. And a great summer, I would suggest. From a COVID standpoint, we clearly struggled in 2020 and trying to understand how we could come together as a community. Clearly, we were trying to stay apart as best we could. And this year, obviously, the things were loosened a little bit for us. And I have to say, the amount of music events that happened, music was happening every Friday and Saturday throughout the summer. I was fortunate enough, and I know many of council were fortunate enough to attend many of the events, and we were talking in the hundreds of people were showing up to each event. As an example, this weekend was spectacular. Friday night, we had music down at Colwood Creek Park. And I would guess there were probably 300 to 350 people, all age groups, which was wonderful to see. A lot of seniors. It was great to see. I saw actually a senior center van show up with participants, which was great to see. So that was a lot of fun. Then on Saturday, we had music in Royal Bay at the Greens. And there was free ice cream that was being given out to the community. Then I know staff were also involved with doing waterfront improvement engagement with the public on Saturday down on the lagoon. And then we had music down on the lagoon Saturday night, which had hundreds of people down there for that. And then on Sunday, we were very fortunate to have the Kaleidoscope Children's Theater come to City Hall. And they did 2 performances. I was fortunate enough to see the later show. And in the later show, I would say that there probably was somewhere between 75 and 80 people there, mostly children under the age of 5 with their parents. It was amazing to see. I would love to congratulate our communications department, Sandra Russell and Brittany Stokes, for the amazing work that they've done. I'd also like to congratulate our public works guys and gals for all the work that they did, setting up the stages, bringing the things. I have to say the one thing I noticed is that there wasn't garbage. I think our public did fantastic on cleaning up after themselves, but I also know that staff did a significant amount of work to make sure that there wasn't additional litter that was built. So just from a standpoint of just saying it was an exciting summer, and I hope people had an opportunity to experience it and look forward to doing that in the years to come. And I certainly hope from a council standpoint that each one of you had an opportunity to be with friends and family, and you've come back renewed and ready to work hard for the fall. which I know you are. So moving on to 5, adoption and receipt of minutes. Looking for a motion to approve the regular council meeting minutes of July 12th. Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Logan. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Great, thank you. Moving on to new business. 6.1. This is a request of leave for Councillor Kobayashi. As I mentioned earlier, Councillor Kobayashi is the Liberal candidate for our riding for the federal election that is happening right now. And Councillor Kobayashi has requested a leave of absence from council without pay from August 16th to September 30th. Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Council, just so you know, I'm just saying it's just for future reference, because I don't have control over people's hands, I don't know which order they're showing up in. And so I'm just looking on screen and I'm just seeing hands. So if you got your hand in first, I apologize. I don't know who's first or second or third right now. Moving on to 6.2, development variance permit application number DVP 21-005. This is for 220 Caspian Drive. We do have a recommendation from the August 23rd Committee of the Whole meeting. Councillor Logan, are you moving that motion? You are. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Jansen. Is there any discussion? And I'm sorry if you guys could, yep, perfect. Not seeing any hands, so I'm going to call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Moving on to 6.3. This is the rezoning for 1905 Souk Road. This is a site-specific text amendment to allow for retail cannabis at Unit 2 of 1905 Souk Road. This is a recommendation from the August 23rd Committee of the Whole meeting. Councillor Jansen, I'm going to assume you're moving the motion. Thank you. Councillor Parkinson, seconding. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Thank you. Moving on to 6.4. This is the 2021 Omnibus Land Use Bylaw Amendment. There is a recommendation from the August 23rd Committee of the Whole. Moved by Councillor Logan. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in opposition, please raise your hands. Sorry, Councillor Logan, your hand's up right now. Thank you. Seeing none, that motion passes. Moving on to 6.5. Sorry, I'm going to go back. Staff, does staff have the ability to lower hands? If a councillor put up their hands, do you guys have the ability to lower those? Or they changed the whole program?
I am not sure, Your Worship. I can't, if somebody wants to.
Councillor Logan, could you just put your hand up?
Thank you.
There's usually a button at the bottom of the screen that just says lower hands for me, usually. So that's not showing up. Oh, did you lower that, Marcy? Were you able to lower that hand? You did, okay.
No,
All
that
right.
was not me. I don't know who lowered the hand. It must have been Gabrielle.
Sorry, that I just clicked on it and it did lower his hand.
Perfect.
So did you, sorry, Gabriel, do you have a button at the bottom of your screen that says lower all hands?
Could someone raise their hand again and I can check, please? I do see, yeah, I do have a button, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not sure why I'm not sure why I don't have that button, but we'll work on that tomorrow. All right, moving on to 6.5, subdivision. This is 3415 Fulton Road, and request to update the communication antenna policy. There is a recommendation from the August 23rd meeting. does staff wish to discuss this before, or Councillor Logan? Okay, thank you. Councillor Logan has moved the motion. Councillor Baxter has seconded it. Is there any discussion? So, sorry, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Baxter. Sorry, I'm just looking, you're muted right now. I'm just looking at your face.
Apologies. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was going to move a different motion. And so I guess you'd better take the one you've got through to fruition and then come back to me if it's still possible.
Sure. Did you want, I don't think there's going to be anyone else who's going to want to discuss this. Did you want to sort of, okay, I'll call the question and we'll see where it goes. Go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor Baxter.
Sorry, I think you still need a second.
No, I had Councillor Logan, then Councillor Jansen seconded it.
Okay, well then I raise my hand to discuss.
The floor is yours, Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. Right. I think we may have missed a lot of information. At least I missed a lot of information that was available on this topic when it was at committee, because there were some very dense and long reports attached. And I understand there was information in there that will answer some of the questions that the motion seeks to find out more about, i.e. whether there are still problems in the neighborhood or not, because apparently technically things have changed. And I think we need to go back and explore that before we go and wake up the whole neighborhood to talk about this. So I'm moving that we refer it back to council with a request for an analysis of the attached technical reports from staff. Okay, Mayor Martin, you're muted.
Thank you, Michael. I was muted and I was busy talking away as well. We do already have a motion, but I will look to staff to give me advice in regards to, because I do get confused around referrals. And does a referral supersede the motion that's on the table? Staff?
Sorry, Mary Martin. Yes, it does.
Okay, so and a referral still needs a seconder, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Councillor Parkinson, are you wishing to discuss or are you wishing to second the referral? Because, and sorry, I'm going to go back to staff just for a minute. Sorry, Councillor Parkinson, my apologies. Staff, is council allowed to discuss the referral, or is the referral, you just call the question and that's it?
There is not normally discussion on a referral.
Okay.
But you would take the vote on the referral first before you go back to the previous motion.
Correct. Okay, thank you. So Councillor Councillor Parkinson, are you seconding it?
That wasn't my intent, no,
Okay.
Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else looking to second the referral? I'm not seeing a seconder, so the referral fails. And so I will come back to discussion on the main motion. Councillor Baxter, do you wish to discuss anything else before I move on to Councillor Parkinson?
No, that's good.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Parkinson?
Well, just to reiterate that I think that there was a lot of kerfuffle about these towers way back when. There was a policy created. We had a request for the city to do a bunch of work to create another policy that may be appropriate, but first thing we got to do is find out if there's still issues. I'm like Michael, I may have missed some of the stuff in that incredibly dense stuff, but what I did read seemed to think it was more focused on Industry Canada standards and what they did and didn't do and how they should have interacted with the municipality. So I still think that before we're going to throw out all the work that was done previously on this tower siting, that we should find out what's going on there if there's any issues at all today. Thank you, Your Worship.
Hey, thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands, so I will call the motion, and the motion is what's in the agenda, the recommendation. So those in opposition, please raise your hands. Councillor Baxter opposes. And I'm just counting numbers just to make sure. So for tonight's council meeting, just so that everybody knows, it is 3 votes that fails a motion because we have 5 of us. So that motion passes. Moving on to, I'm sorry, I got lost. We just did 6.5. So 6.6, this is Jill Collingson, our senior planner, regarding the summary of Colwood's participation in the Clean BC Better Homes Rebate Program and request for additional funding. Ms. Collingson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you may remember that last December, Council resolved City's participation in the Clean BC Better Homes Municipal Top-Up Program, and at that time allocated $10,000 from the Climate Action Reserve Fund towards this. So at that time, about 8 months ago or so, we said we would offer an update at year end or when the funds are exhausted. As of 2 weeks ago, the funds, the $10,000 were over 75% spent and expected to be exhausted in the coming weeks. Thus, we're here tonight. So the report in front of you offers a summary of program uptake and anticipates continued interest and continued participation by Colwoodians. As such, an additional $10,000 is being requested. I'm available for any questions.
Great, thank you. I see Councillor Jansen's hand up first. Councillor Jansen, are you just moving the recommendation?
Yeah, thank you. I'll move the staff recommendation wholeheartedly, and we've heard the positive comments from the community, and obviously this has struck a chord. So let's get on with it.
Excellent, thank you. Just for the public's, because some of the other motions were dealt with at committee of the whole, and then they were being I'm just going to read the motion so that the public has it. And the motion is that council allocates an additional $10,000 from the Climate Action Reserve Fund to support Colwood's continued participation in the Clean BC Better Homes Renovation Rebate Program through 2021. Councillor Jansen has moved it. Councillor Logan, you were second on the list, so are you seconding it?
Yes, Your Worship.
Great, then I will go to you for a second discussion.
No.
Oh, no, nothing? Okay, great. Then it would be Councillor Parkinson, then Baxter.
Thank you, Your Worship. At some point, will we get some information on how effective this program is? Obviously we're effective at giving the money to people. I just like to know that things like energy audits weren't just put on a shelf, but if they've done them, have they carried on, or is this the impetus people are needing to tighten up their homes, or is this just a nice piece of information? Maybe the province gathers that data or monitors that. I don't know how we understand that. Again, it seems like a good program as long as it's working, and we should make sure it's working before we go too far down this road. But I think I support the motion as it stands. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Ms. Collingson, do you want to answer that at all?
Mr. Chair or Mr. Mayor, there is a table offered it's table 1 within the report, and it does summarize the 5 different top-up options that council directed participation in. And so from that, you can see that the fuel switch air source heat pump and the contractor incentive have been the biggest 2 uptake to date. And that is anticipated to continue. Colwoodians have not uptaken any option for the Energuide assessment or heat pump water heater option as through to June 30th.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that update. Councillor Baxter. Oh, unmute, Councillor Baxter.
I'd like to move an amendment to the motion to increase the amount to 20,000.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Sorry, staff, could you lower everybody's hands, please? Thank you. Do I have a seconder to Councillor Baxter's motion? I do not. So that the amendment
No
fails.
help. There's just no.
Don't take it personally, Councillor Baxter. I will comment, though I guess the only comment I will say is I appreciate Councillor Baxter's thing, and I certainly would be open that if we ended up spending this additional $10,000 to looking at an additional 10 on top of that in the future if staff chose to bring that back. So I certainly am not unsympathetic to where Councillor Baxter's motion. I just think we could adjust it later. So is there any other comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Moving on to 6.7. This is Sandra Russell, our Manager of Corporate Communications, engagement summary for traffic calming pilot project on Adine, Milburn, Mount View, and Pickford. Ms. Russell.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. So I'm here tonight. I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay. I have a brief presentation to talk through this report, which is a little bit complex. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, good. So tonight, Council is being asked to provide direction about next steps for these temporary traffic calming pilot projects that were installed on 4 streets this spring. Basically, Colwood's official community plan identifies traffic calming as a way to improve the safety and accessibility of streets. Mobility is one of the 4 key goals of this strategic plan, with traffic calming as a tactic to create a safe, convenient, and connected transportation network. And the Transportation Master Plan identifies priority areas for traffic calming around schools, in high traffic neighborhoods, and on greenways that provide an alternative to driving. So these temporary traffic calming pilot projects are one way the city is working with residents to improve the safety and comfort of neighborhoods. And they were intended to give residents the opportunity to experience the impact the measures would have on their neighborhood and clarify concerns and share their views before anything is done permanently. So when neighborhoods request traffic calming, the city typically schedules the installation of speed reader boards to collect traffic data about vehicle speeds and volumes. So traffic data had been collected on or near the 4 temporary installations that were undertaken. Measures were designed and installed based on this data, as well as community concerns and known travel habits, as well as physical features. So the road widths and curves, grades, driveways, ditches, transit stops, hydro poles, and lots of other factors come into play when making these decisions. They were installed primarily using equipment the city already has in its inventory, which makes them quite affordable for these tests. Letters were delivered to property owners adjacent to the installations to let them know what was happening and to encourage them to join the conversation on Let's Talk Colwood. And then there were signs at each installation to direct the public to Let's Talk too as they drove through the installations. And of course, we shared information online, and a brief video overview was provided to let people know a little bit more about the purpose. So into the actual measures that were to put in place, the first route that was traffic calmed was Mount View Avenue. 3 temporary speed cushions were put in place here, and quite a good conversation online on Let's Talk About This. There were 45 people who contributed to this conversation, so visitors there. 182 responses were received. That includes both comments as well as people who clicked agreement or disagreement. So significant interaction here. 151 people actually visited the page and stayed long enough, according to the platform, to learn a bit about the project. There are a few representative comments there on the page. So just to let you know, these were discussion forums, not surveys. The idea was really to help clarify concerns and allow other factors to emerge. So nearby intersections sometimes came up, or different signage or speed enforcement. And so now the city has some information to guide future improvement and better understand people's concerns in these areas as well. So all of those comments were attached verbatim to the report. A few are listed here just to give a sense. And so the tone of the conversation was used to guide the recommendation rather than it being a win and loss kind of situation. So that's Mount View. On 80 Road, road markings were put in place. So council has decided or recommended that 80 Road will become a sort of a greenway route over time as part of the active transportation priorities. And so this made a bit of sense to signal to people that that may be coming and encourage cars to slow down with a better understanding that they're sharing the route with cyclists and give cyclists a little bit more confidence using the route. So a little less engagement. The general gist of this conversation was that people would like to see more done in terms of protecting cyclists on this route. You can see the numbers of engagement there. The third location was on Pickford Road. A lot of engagement on this one. There was some strong resistance, particularly from just one or two participants in this. The tone in general was still supportive of these measures and the safety that they seem to be providing. So 461 responses, and I apologize, I think there may have been a transcription error in the report where it said 416. That was my error. So good engagement on that one. But again, issues like speed limits would come up, and not everyone loves them, frankly. Milburn Drive, down toward the lagoon, had 3 speed cushions installed, as well as a delineated walkway and a widening of the shoulder to improve safety for pedestrians there. This is the highest engagement of the 4 areas. Again, on this one, mostly what we heard was that people would like to see more. Permanent sidewalks are strongly encouraged for this route, and council has addressed that in the 10-year active transportation plan. So for now, people are requesting more on this route, and other areas emerge, such as cut-throughs from Hatley Drive, some conversation about Lagoon and should something be done there. So a lot of learning through this process. A couple of other areas where traffic calming has been requested is again on Hatley Drive to decrease that cut through from Machosen Road. And so the city actually organized a meeting with adjacent property owners in this area with McElhaney Engineering, who's a contractor who works with the city on some of these projects. And through that conversation, residents expressed support for traffic calming on Hatley to discourage cut through, not universally, but the majority in that conversation. Other ideas were discussed too, and that information can be found for council through staff. But this shows up in the recommendation as well. And then the last location is on Brittany Drive, where speed cushions were installed several years ago. They've been well accepted by the community, and staff are recommending that they be made permanent so that those temporary cushions that are currently in place could be used in other areas around the city. So in terms of financial considerations for these recommendations, Public Works advises that the approximate costs for one speed cushion, the equipment and installation, is in the range of $1,500. So if we were to proceed with making these temporary installations permanent, the cost would be in the range of $15,000. And for pickets, one walkway picket is for equipment and installation is about $150. So for 25 additional pickets, we would be looking at about $37.50. So the recommendation in the report today is that staff be directed to leave the temporary traffic calming measures in place on all 4 of the temporary routes until a permanent solution is installed, and then include in the upcoming budget the funds necessary to make them permanent. The recommendation also includes 2 additional speed cushions and a section of 25 additional walkway pickets on Milburn Drive. And that staff work with Capital Bike and the Capital Regional District to explore options for cycling signage at the Galloping Goose to clarify cyclist behavior in that area. And the last piece being that staff explore options for a temporary traffic calming pilot on Hatley Drive to address those cut-through issues or or see how that might work. So I turn that over to council for consideration, and I'm here to answer questions if there are any. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to ask you not to, or to unshare your screen, just because I can't see people, unfortunately.
Okay. As long as I can find it. Okay.
Excellent, thank you. I see Councillor Baxter's hand up. Councillor Baxter.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to the issue of whether we should remove or keep the temporary installations. And I was initially in favor of keeping them, but having re-examined the website, I see that we've promised several times very specifically that we would remove the temporary installations until the final decision on whether to put the permanent ones in or not has been taken, which I gather would actually take place during budget discussions, so some time hence. Therefore, I'm going to make a separate motion just on that one issue, that we proceed to remove all of the temporary installations as we have promised as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. I have that motion. Do I have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Baxter. Oh, no. I was about to say you're 3 for 3, but I think somebody's going to bail you out on that one. Councillor Parkinson, are you seconding?
Yeah, we should talk about this.
All right. All right, it is seconded. Councillor Baxter, you've kind of you gave us your preamble before you made the motion, so I'm going to, unless you have something addition to add.
If I can just say one sentence, that
You may.
we should do what we promised.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Parkinson, then Logan, then Jansen.
I can't find a flaw in Councillor Baxter's logic. If we've promised to do something, I think it's very important that we do what we mean and mean what we say. So that's why we should talk about it. But I'm not so sure, and I haven't done the depth of research that Councillor Baxter has. I'm not so sure that when we said we will remove them in 3 months, or we'll remove them unless there's a decision made. If we make a decision tonight that we want to make these things permanent, we can discuss the budgetary implications of that. I think we have budget information coming up later in the meeting. I don't know the exact wording, so I'm going to defer to those that do. But if we have said, these are here for 3 months and then they're gone, then I guess they should be gone. But if we said they're here for 3 months unless we make a decision to keep them permanently, and we decide tonight to make them permanent, then I think that meets our commitment to the citizens. So I know it's a fine line. I might be splitting hairs, but I wonder if somebody with more in-depth knowledge of what's been committed to can answer that for me. Thank you.
Yeah, and Miss Russell has just texted me because for some reason her internet dropped off, so we lost her, and she's trying to get back on. Councillor Parkinson, I think you have a really good point, and I guess have a tendency to want to suggest that perhaps, Councillor Baxter, with your permission, we may want to table your motion until the discussion comes about, if we are going to permanently move forward to that, because I agree with Councillor Parkinson that we could probably make a choice this evening, choose that we're going to make this permanent, but the temporaries would need to stay until budget, and then if the budget didn't approve it, then we would probably need to remove the temporary ones because we're not making them permanent at that point. But which would suggest to me that we probably want to answer that question first before we question or address your issue. But this is council's agenda, not mine. So Councillor Logan, I believe I said was next. Councillor Logan.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Actually, Councillor Parkinson had made my point already, and I would suggest that if we make a decision to make these permanent, then the money will be in the budget, and there will be some pressure on us to go ahead and approve, since we've made the decision to make these permanent. And you know, I think if we removed them and then waited until we made the decision at budget, you know, just the optics would be a little sour, I suppose. And I'd suggest that the responses are saying that the temporary measures are working, and I can certainly attest to the ones that are on Brittany Drive. So I won't be supporting the motion, with all due respect, my friend. I think we should just make the decision tonight whether or not to make them permanent and leave them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter, it is Councillor Jansen's turn. Is it, unless there's something urgent that...
No, it's just that the raising and lowering of hands doesn't seem to be working.
No, and I appreciate that. No, and I promise I will come back to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. No, and I appreciate that. We're probably going to have to do what you're doing tonight, Councillor Baxter, landing an aircraft. Councillor Jansen.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. It just sticks in my craw to think that we're going to embark on a possible engineering solution. And then in 90 days, it's with a stroke of a pen or a snap of the fingers, it's gone. We're hearing that some people are pleased with the results. So, and I don't, what's our response to those people? That we posted it on our webpage, so we have to do what we said we would do? How about we post an apology on the webpage and we leave all the stuff in place? Like, it's nonsensical. And I'm quite sure that the intent of this council supersedes perhaps what is maybe outlined on our webpage or our policy, and perhaps the policy needs to be amended. I'm also quite sure that the idea or the spirit of this window is, at the conclusion, we will make changes. A, it doesn't work, we pulled it down, it was a disaster. Or B, it works, this is great, boom, here goes your, on the 91st day, we have a concrete crew out there putting in speed bumps. Like, I don't even know why we're discussing this. Those are some of my thoughts. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Staff, could you lower everyone's hands for me? That'd be great. I will, I'm not seeing everybody's had an opportunity to speak to Councillor Baxter's motion, which is to, I'm paraphrasing right now, but is to take down the 10, take down the temporary. Councillor Parkinson, you've already spoken once, but you're looking to speak to this again?
With your good grace, Your Worship.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, and again, it's a question of timing. It was a question I was going to ask when we hit the finance part of it, but you'll note that in the second quarter financial review coming up later, there are a couple of items added, one of which is the extra $10,000 that we just talked about earlier for energy efficiencies. It's unclear to me why in this meeting we can talk about energy efficiencies, add $10,000, they get in the budget, the third quarter budget, which presumably we're going to deal with later on and pass. Why the same couldn't be said if today we decide on these speed cushions, that's what we want to do, and there's a $15,000 or $18,000 cost. Surely we could add that into the budget as an amendment, just as we're adding the $10,000 in for scenic. I may be missing something on the financial workings of the city, but I doubt it. So it would seem to me that, again, while I supported Councillor Baxter's motion, that I don't want us to be telling people one thing and then not doing it. If we've told them they're here for 90 days or until we decide to do them, and we decide to do them today, let's put the money in the budget and let's do them. And let's not get caught up about, well, we can't do them till the budget, so therefore should we take them out and put them back in? That's my concern.
Okay,
so
I
would hope that if we agree that we want these things in, I'm hoping that we can amend the financial plan and make sure they're funded. But of course, we can't discuss that till we get to that section of the agenda. Hence, I didn't my first time around, but I thought it was appropriate for my second time around.
Well, it wasn't, Councillor Baxter. I'm joking. I am not. It's an excellent question, but I am not going to ask staff the question yet, because what I want to do is vote on. Because right now we're talking about removing the temporaries, and so what we'll do is we'll vote on that. But then I think you have a very legitimate question about why, from a budgetary standpoint. And once I have something in a motion, I will ask staff to answer your question, because I think your question is really smart. Councillor Baxter, this is your third time speaking to this. And this is going to be the last time I'm going to let you speak to this motion. I'm going to call the question. So Councillor Baxter, this is it. Go ahead. No, sorry, you're muted, Councillor Baxter. Councillor Baxter, you're muted.
Yeah, this is my second time. You never gave me my second time. But I just thought that if we're going to make this decision, we should actually know what the website said. But a couple of other things along the way. One, the citizens do not distinguish between us and our website. They see it as one organization. And secondly, all of these temporary installations will be removed because they're going to be replaced with permanent installations or not, but they will be removed. So we're just talking about timing here. What we did actually say was in the timeline, install temporary measures, April 2021. Colwood crews install temporary measures to be trialed, evaluated, and then removed. Remove temporary measures, fall 2021. Temporary measures are removed. Budget decisions are considered by council for possible permanent installations. So we didn't just say it, we hammered it home. However, I feel that I may have to surrender to Councillor Jensen's ineffable logic, which I cannot remember all of it, but it was incredibly good. So I leave it in your hands.
All right, thank you. Councillor Baxter, I appreciate your passion around communicating with the public and us being consistent with the public. And from a sincere standpoint, I very much appreciate that. We do want to be communicating as well as we can. I think I don't want to speak for staff, but I believe the goal there when they were trying to communicate that was to try to create some assurances to the public that these were not permanent themselves, that they would be removed after council saw if they worked or did not work. And so perhaps we were a little strong on our language on that, and it did create some inconsistencies that we'll probably need to address moving forward. So with that, I am going to call the question on Councillor Baxter's motion, which was to remove all of the temporary mechanisms that we had in place. Those in opposition to that motion, please raise your hands. Okay. Councillor Logan, Councillor Parkinson, and Mayor Martin oppose, so that motion fails. Is there another motion? Anyone would like to move? Councillor Logan, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I'll move the staff recommendation, Your Worship. And I just had a quick question.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jansen, are you seconding the motion? Councillor Jansen, you are? Okay, thank you. Sorry, and Councillor Logan, just before I go to you, I will go to your question. But before we lose it, Councillor Parkinson did ask a question, which I'm going to look to our CAO to answer in regards to the budget and why this would be pushed to the next budget cycle and not done the way we did it with the previous item. Mr. Earl?
So generally speaking, staff would not presume to bring a project forward in the current year, with the two exceptions that you see later in the report. One we had flagged earlier, and the second one came up midstream and we did not know about it. So generally speaking, administration will always recommend to council that it goes into the next budget cycle so it can compete against other projects. That said, if council is desirous with this project to move this forward in this year, I'm confident that Ms. Hepting can provide the necessary motion required.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and thank you for that answer. Councillor Logan?
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question. I know that the speed cushions on Sunridge Valley Drive weren't listed, so there was some rumor in the neighborhood that they were going to be removed, but I just want to give them some assurance that they will stay or be made permanent. They were put in the same time, actually, the ones on Brittany Drive were installed, so I'm not sure if Ms. Russell can speak to that or someone else from staff.
Thank you, Councillor Logan. Through the chair, I think the intention is to implement all the Sunridge Valley Drive and Brittany Drive, all the temporary cushions in that neighborhood. Thanks for that clarification.
Good, thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
Great, thank you. Councillor Jensen, you were the seconder. Do you have any questions before I move on to Councillor Parkinson?
I don't think so, but I would.
We can come.
I'll listen to the discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I am happy to come back to you. I just wanted to give you that opportunity. Councillor Parkinson, then Baxter.
Your worship, would it be possible to break the motion down to I think there's 4 recommendations in total, or 4 parts of the recommendation, maybe 5, perhaps deal with them individually?
Sure, I'm happy to sever them and go through all 4.
Yeah, sorry, I know it'll delay things. But
no. That I don't think it won't be a big delay. I'm happy with that, unless Councillor Logan, you object. Okay, great. Is that it, Councillor Parkinson, or would you?
Yeah, no, and then I may have comments on some of the individual parts, but.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Baxter.
I was going to make can I make a request of staff that in item 3, and I'm not making this a motion, I'm hoping staff can just assent to it, that when it says work with Capital Regional District, that we will not wait until Capital Regional District is prepared to agree, but we will simply take whatever they have to say and move on. Because I first started to work on this while I was working in Langford 20 years ago, and had to carry on without the Capital Regional District's assent. And 20 years later, they still haven't come up with a standard for these types of crossings. So I don't think we want to wait another 20 years. I think we just need to get it done. Will staff agree to not wait for CRD, or do I need to make a motion on that?
Go ahead, Mr. Moeller.
Thank you very much. Through the mayor, to Councillor Baxter, we agree and hear you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. Sorry, staff, could you lower hands, please, for me? Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each recommendation and then call a vote on each. Councillor Parkinson, you said you wanted to comment on them. Normally I would just sever them and start. Do you wish to comment on all 4, or is there a specific one I should stop at?
Okay, busted. Because I'm traveling, I don't have them in front of me. My notes sort of have a couple of comments.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure which ones they are. I certainly don't have any I wanted to talk about. I think there was one.
I'll read each out then. And no, my apologies. I didn't mean to trap you like that. Okay, so the first one is that staff be directed to leave the temporary traffic calming measures in place on Adine, Brittany, Milburn, Mount View, and Pickford until a permanent solution is installed, and include in the upcoming budget the funds necessary to make them permanent. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in opposition to 1? No one opposes. Moving on to, and that 2 additional speed cushions and 24 additional walkway pickets be added on Milburn Drive. I will call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. And 3, and that staff work with Capital Bikes and the Capital Regional District to explore options for cycling signage at the Galloping Goose crossing on Pickford Road. Councillor Parkinson.
Could we add that they also explore the options for lighting in that section? I think there was a couple of comments how lighting might be useful, either both sort of overhead lighting for vision and also perhaps some flashing lights for that intersection.
Okay. May I just add lighting and then have staff just take it as
please
direction?
Please.
Great. So I will just throw in to explore options for cycling signage and lighting at the Galloping Goose crossing at Pickford Road. Seeing that, is there any discussion or other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. And 4, and that staff explore options for a temporary traffic calming pilot on Hatley Drive. Councillor Parkinson. Oh, Councillor Parkinson, you're muted.
Thank you. I understand that there has been quite a lot of discussion with the neighborhood, so I don't want to sort of pretend that I know anything that hasn't been discussed already. My concern is that the dealing with the Hatley Drive issue separate from the Chosen Road issue is a little problematic. We've had at the table discussion on the Chosen Road and the cross section and whether there's a 3-lane or a 2-lane, and is there a left turn bay for people accessing it? Is there perhaps an option to restrict right turns onto Hatley Drive? I just hope that the explorations, and again, if the neighbors are involved, they will be, look at all the options. Again, the sidewalk, once we put a sidewalk in, that might affect things on Grattan, which is going to affect some of the things all over the place. So I'm just not sure that we can look at Hatley Drive in isolation of the Chosen Road. So I'd like to encourage that to happen, the discussions to happen, and perhaps even before any work takes place on the Hatley Drive. Happy to leave it in staff with that comment, but I think that should be, they have to go together in my opinion.
Great. I see Ms. Russell has her hand up. Ms. Russell.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Just so that council is aware, I mentioned that a conversation had happened with McElhaney and the neighborhoods. So McElhaney will be coming back for another meeting with those neighbors to present some potential options for some of the things you're talking about, Councillor Parkinson, restricting the turn lane, discussing the 30K limit on Machosen Road and some other options. And so McElhaney is going to be presenting some of those options. So the conversation continues, just so that you know.
Thank you very much.
Great. I will call the question then. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Thank you. We're going to move on now to 6.8. This is Byron Grant, our Manager of Building Inspection and Bylaw Services. This is in regards to the BC Energy Step Code, process consultation, implementation, and amending bylaw. Mr. Grant.
Good evening, Council. I have my PowerPoint here. Bring that up. Everyone see that okay?
We can.
Okay. So tonight we bring you a staff report for considering the implementation of the BC Energy Step Code. By now, most of you are probably aware of what its purpose is and how at this point it's an optional approach for local governments. Excuse me. In November of 2019, Colwood Council directed staff to work towards implementing the BC Energy Step Code. Step Code aligns with the city's commitment to reducing energy use and emissions while making our seaside community more resilient to the impacts of a changing climate. Step Code will likely be mandatory in the next BC Building Code, and it's prudent for the building community to become familiar with this change. One of the main changes is air tightness testing and increased attention to the air barrier of the building and its performance. Colwood is in a relatively mild climate, and there are not significant changes to construction assemblies compared to other parts of the province that are required to add exterior insulation, for example. At this point in time, step code is an option for local governments to adopt. There are not specific levels required. What is proposed for levels with option 1 in the staff report is in line with the council direction stemming from the council meeting on November 12, 2019, and it's consistent with other larger municipalities in BC. Council can also choose an alternative to what is proposed for step levels. Generally, most new buildings meet step 2 with current BC building code requirements. At this point, this timeline to adopt step code can be considered by council. It can be as early as staff bringing the first 3 readings to the special committee meeting on September 13th, with an implementation date of September 27th, 2021. Applicable building permit applications received on or after this date would be subject to step code. Council can also choose an alternative timeline for implementation. And that is it.
Thank you. I will just ask you to, there you go, perfect. I will look to council for questions and then a motion. If anyone, Councillor Baxter.
Yeah, on August 4th, I responded to an email request for questions that we needed answering on this topic, and my request was for an estimate of the lifetime energy cost savings that will accrue to the new and subsequent owners of step code 3 houses compared to a current code standard house. And we don't have that in the report, but what's perhaps more noticeable is that there is no discussion whatsoever in this or previous reports about the effect on the future occupants of the house, which is in fact a really important effect. And there is a feeling out in the public that we care more about the developers than we care about the inhabitants. And I don't believe that for a minute, but this lack of mention of the inhabitants does kind of play into that belief. So in order to change that now and in the future, I'd like to move that all future staff reports which deal with changes to the rules governing building, zoning, or construction must include an assessment of the effects of those changes on current or future occupants of those buildings.
Okay, did you, so normally, Councillor Baxter, just so you know, normally it would be helpful if there's a motion that you're gonna move forward, that you provide it to staff early so that they can put it on screen so that staff can, or that council could see that. It's quite an involved motion. Staff, are you able to record that motion and put it on screen for us for discussion? Or actually, maybe first I'll look for, is there any interest from a council standpoint from a seconder before I look at trying to get it posted? Looking for a seconder. Councillor Baxter, you did not get seconded. Sorry. So that's going to take us back to the main motion. Do I have a mover for a recommendation at all? Staff, could you please lower Councillor Baxter's hand, please? Or Councillor Baxter, if you could lower your hand, that'd be great. Do I have what's council's will? Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, are we still in discussion?
Yeah, we can still just discuss. I just trying to move this item along. So yeah, go ahead.
Byron, help me out here. sorry, I've been ill for a little bit, so I'm not completely caught up, but did you parse out on what page did we parse out sort of the cost estimate? Yes, it's directed at the builder, but to wit, it also affects the purchaser. Remember our discussion? I think I emailed a question about that too, that our discussion last time was between zero from a very nice lady that had a presentation to, you know, $1 million from the Home Builders Association. Did we, and my understanding was it was hard to kind of nail it down with any specificity, but did we do some work in that area? Did we make any headway?
Through the chair to Councillor Jansen, if you give me a moment, I could probably pull up on the computer. It definitely depends on the size of the building, what sort of heating systems there are. And as you say, there are definitely mixed opinions on what that difference would be. I could come back to council with a more accurate breakdown of that, or else I could try to search through the emails there to find that.
To be fair, I am interested, and I'm interested in learning some of these facts and figures so that we can articulate why we're moving in this direction. I don't intend to slow down this motion, Your Worship and Byron, but and again, back to Councillor Baxter, and to be fair to Councillor Baxter, I think he makes some strong arguments. It's like helping us help you all in articulating this and why this is a good move for the community, and because we will get some pushback from our development community, who are our partners in these large developments, and definitely have skin in the game. I guess that's about it, Your Worship. I'll await the other comments.
Great, thank you. Councillor Parkinson.
Sorry, Your Worship, I know you're looking for a motion, and I'm a little challenged here in that, anyway, I won't whine. I'm a little challenged. My notes say 6.8 step. Okay, so I think I'm prepared to move the motion. I just don't have a clue what it is because I don't have it in front.
Okay,
but I
I
did
will
do my review and read it, and I think that the staff have got it right. So if you wish to read a motion, I'd be happy to move it.
So okay, thank you, Councillor Parkinson. And for those watching online, I can vouch personally that Councillor Parkinson has 100% read the agenda and done all the work. It's just unfortunate it's just not in front of him right now. The recommendation is that the city implements the BC Energy Step Code via an amendment to our building bylaw number 977, and that staff return to council with draft bylaw for first, second, and third reading. And you're good with that, Councillor Parkinson?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Councillor Logan, I see your hand up. Are you seconding?
I am.
Or you wish to discuss? Great, thank you. Councillor, I'll go back to Councillor Parkinson. You're the mover. Any discussion in regards to that?
I'm hoping that when the first 3 readings of the bylaw come, I think September, whatever date it was, that we won't in fact say, and the next day you all have to meet step code, that there will be some kind of grace period for a little bit of time. But we'll deal with that at the time those motions come forward, I believe.
Great. I see that staff, Ms. Lalonde, had her hand up.
Sorry, I've removed my hand. Thank you.
But you had your hand up. Oh, fine. Councillor Logan, your hand's up now. Oh, Councillor Logan's got his hand down too. Okay. So I do have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. So I will call the question. Those in opposition, please raise your hand. Nobody opposes. 6.9 we have taken off tonight's agenda, so that takes us straight to 6:10. This is Jen Hempting, our Director of Finance, regarding a second quarter financial update. Ms. Hempting.
Thank you, Your Worship. Do you see the slide deck before you?
It's loading on my end. Now it's there.
Great, thank you very much. So staff have prepared for council a comprehensive second quarter financial update. We did bring forth a brief financial update just before summer recess, but this really is Council's first time receiving a comprehensive update for the 2021 budget. I've put together a few slides here just to discuss things from a very high level, and then I'll be pleased to go into any questions that Council may have. So what you have before you is a comparative of the budget, and I will note this is the budget as amended under the first financial plan amendment that was passed in May of this year. A comparative of actuals to the end of June 2021. So those actuals simply reflect the transactions as posted. We don't book any accruals for those actuals at this point in the year. We've then projected our activity, and I will highlight, so this is based on our anticipation of how activity will progress to the end of the year. These projections will be refined when we bring forth a third quarter financial update, and then again further when we get into budget deliberations. So I do highlight that because at this point in the year, those projections are still potentially subject to change. And we did highlight that in the appendices of the report, where we kind of had more certainty where we anticipated some change. So from a real high level, we are projecting a minor surplus at this point in the year. That's primarily, and I've got a breakdown before you. So we're projecting a general operating surplus of just over $160,000, primarily the result of various core operating expenses coming in under budget due to either staffing transitions or staffing vacancies. In addition, our policing strength is not actualizing to what we have budgeted, and so that as well is generating right now an anticipated surplus of just under $90,000. And we do highlight that separately as we do recommend that that be treated as a separate transfer to reserves at year end for purposes specific to the RCMP. In addition, we're projecting a sewer operating surplus, in part sewer utility related expenditures falling below budget, but also sewer user fees exceeding budget, and in particular related to our federal sewer user fees that we recover increasing over what we were anticipating this year. So that's a breakdown of our surplus as we project it at this time. Attached to the report, you have an overview of all revenues and expenses in the first appendix. The second appendix provided Council with background on each of the city's service areas and on the activity to date, as well as what we're projecting to year end. The third and fourth appendix to the report highlighted status updates on each of the city's special initiatives and capital projects or capital programs. So just wanted to highlight within the special initiatives, we had 39 distinct initiatives. We also keep a couple of contingency related items here. Of the 39 initiatives, 35 are in progress and or we're anticipating progress to initiate before the end of the year. And then with respect to our capital infrastructure works that are detailed in the fourth appendix, of the 56 separate either projects or capital programs, we have work underway in 49 of those. And I felt it important to highlight that because sometimes when you look at the, projected spend to date, it doesn't paint the same picture for varying reasons, and that detail is provided in the appendix to the report there. Ultimately, the purpose of tonight is simply that this information be received That being said, we have highlighted a couple of drivers to return with a second financial plan amendment. We spoke about one of these with the update prior to summer recess, and that is the need to increase the capital expenditure budget for purpose of the Latoria Creek Park stairs work. Earlier tonight, Council endorsed increasing the special initiative budget for purposes of the Clean BC Better Homes Renovation Rebate Program. So those two drivers have been highlighted. Earlier tonight, we also had a conversation regarding our traffic calming works. The city introduced a recurring program budget in recent years for traffic calming purposes, whether they are temporary or permanent in nature. We have incurred some spend to date, just under $6,000, and this program budget is just over $20,000 a year. So should we be moving, as Council has just recommended, on those additional works that were discussed moments ago, I would recommend that become a third bullet point here for us to increase that program's budget to ensure that we have the sufficient funding for the 2021 works as have been directed. In the update before you, staff did project that we would spend the full annual program budget, but with the additional detail that was discussed earlier, that does take us slightly over that amount by about $6,000 or so. So that's a third point to consider incorporating should council wish to resolve that with this recommendation. With that, I'll take pause. Pleased to answer any questions, and we do have our teams in attendance tonight to speak to any specifics of the initiatives or capital works. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Could you perfect. Council. Okay, well, while I'm waiting for council to put up their hands, I have a question. Ms. Hempton, can you the sewer user fee and the sewer LAS, excuse me, the surplus that we have, those are paid by sewer users. So is that money going back to sewer users, or is that surplus going into general revenue?
Thank you, Your Worship. Great question. So any surplus that is generated by the sewer utility is absolutely restricted for those purposes. Specifically, if it's an LAS, so we levy local service area taxation to recover the capital infrastructure costs of those respective areas. Those funds are specifically restricted for that purpose. So they are not considered within the sewer operating surplus. We do in fact restrict them within our accumulated surplus separately. And then any other surplus or deficit related to the sewer utility is again clearly restricted within our accumulated surplus for purposes of sewer.
Great, thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Yeah, I'd like to move the recommendation. I'm a bit nervous about doing so because everything I've moved so far has failed to get a seconder, and I think that would be a problem.
Oh, Councillor Baxter, you won today. You got people seconding you all over the place, so you're fine. Councillor Jansen has seconded it. I'm going to go back to Councillor Baxter. Do you wish to make any comments since you're the mover?
No.
Great. Councillor Jansen's lowered his hand. So Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations, Councillor Baxter. I just want to clarify that it includes that the third point about the traffic calming initiatives that we approved earlier that Jen spoke about.
Councillor Baxter? With Councillor Baxter, did you mean to include that into your motion?
Yes, I
the
did.
Traffic calming. Okay.
Yeah.
And so staff, can you please provide just a one-liner of what that additional line would read in that motion for council, so that we can just make sure that that's recorded? Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Hempty.
Thank you, Your Worship. I recommend that we increase the 2021 capital expenditure budget in the amount of $7,000 for purposes of the city's traffic calming program.
Great,
And
thank you.
that will provide sufficient funding.
Great. Councillor Baxter, you're comfortable with that addition?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, is there any, Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to create clarity at the council table that the budgets that administration has provided this evening relative to making the traffic calming permanent do not include any lighting considerations that were added to the motion earlier this evening, and that lighting would be beyond these budgets.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, that's understood. Could I have staff please lower everybody's hands for me? I'm going to call the question. Those in opposition to the motion? Nobody opposes. So that motion passes. Moving on to 6.11. This is Marcy Lalonde, our interim corporate officer, in regards to the council and committee meetings hybrid update. Ms. Lalonde.
Hi there, Your Worship. Oh, sorry about the lighting. So the briefing is to provide council with an update on the process to enable hybrid meetings at the city. There's no recommendation required. The new legislation is going to come into force on September the 29th to allow municipalities to conduct meetings by electronic means, including the ability to hold hybrid meetings. And hybrid meetings will allow for both electronic and in-person meetings. Staff have been working with the audio visual provider to update the council chambers to allow for the hybrid meetings. And unfortunately, due to the worldwide shortage of circuit boards, there has been a back order on parts that are required to complete the council chambers upgrade. So work had commenced last week, and the service provider has indicated that the additional parts are now required, and work is going to resume as soon as those parts are in. And that is my update. And if anybody has any questions.
I will look for hands if there's any. Otherwise, we will move on to 6.12, which is also you, Ms. Lalonde, in regards to the Royal Roads University 2005 Souk Road structural change to liquor license. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Councillor Parkinson, you had a question in regards to the chambers?
I did. I just wondered what this is going to look like at the end of the day. Are we going to have people in person and people on TV screens phoning in and people on TV screens with agendas and stuff? Do we know what we're aiming for?
That is correct. So essentially the council chambers would be set up similar to what we've got here, and we would just be another square in the Zoom meeting process. The bonus of having it done this way too is our previous setup didn't enable presentations to be shown clearly on screen. And by doing this, it'll be shared and it'll be easier to see. So we have, yes, intention of being able to allow people to participate in person and electronically.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so let's move on to 6.12 then, which is the structural change to liquor license.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Royal Roads University has applied to the Liquor Control and Cannabis Licensing Branch for a structural change to their liquor primary license. The application is to add to their current license to include new spaces in the Dogwood building by 420 persons for a total of 3,482 persons. Applications for structural changes to liquor primary license are required to be considered by the local government as public interest factors may be affected by the structural change. If council chooses to provide comment, the city must gather public input from the community, including impacts on noise, and if the community impact if the application is to be approved. Staff believe that there would be minimal impact to the community should an application be approved due to the location of Royal Roads and proximity to residential area. And I have also Lorraine Bourtois, who is the Associate Director of Campus Services for Royal Roads University and she's available for any questions if you have any on the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jansen.
I'm going to go ahead and move the recommendation as outlined by Corporate Services. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Logan. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Sorry, staff, can you take down hands for me? Councillor Parkinson, I do see you that you wish to comment. Go ahead.
When I first read this, I thought it had to be a typo, but there's a license for 3,000 people to be drinking at one time on the Royal Roads campus. I mean, it's amazing. How does any work get done? Anyhow, it was an amazing number to read. I read the report. I could support what they're doing. I assume they're not all drinking at once, but I just, I mean, what is that, like 50% of the eligible drinkers in Colwood drinking at Royal Roads all at once? No wonder we all love the place so much.
Their next engagement session.
Sorry, Your Worship, I'll shut up now.
No, that's good. All right, anybody else? Nope. I will call the question then. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Moving on to 6.13, Dennis Carlson, our planner. This is an RBCD zone amendment for a two-family dwelling. Ms. Carlson?
Yeah,
Mr. Carlson, pardon, excuse me.
So I'll just give you a second here. So very briefly, this is regarding an amendment to the RBCD 5 zone that was presented by staff to council in July. Included a staff recommendation that the number of two-family dwellings in the current RBCD 5 zone be deleted. Committee expressed some concerns regarding that and requested some further clarification from staff. In discussions with the applicant, they have indicated that they wish to remove that particular aspect, and therefore the bylaw that is on your agenda tonight for consideration does not include that, and only includes the removal of the large lot regulations and permitting a minimum of 2 attached dwellings. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? There's no motion needed, so I will move on to bylaws if there isn't any questions for staff. Seeing none, I will move on then. We're moving on to 7 bylaws. 7.1, this is bylaw number 1892, land use bylaw amendment CD 28 zone area 5. This is for first and second reading. Dennis Carlson, planner, CD zone area 5, Latoria South. Rescind amendment number 182, Latoria South, bylaw number 1892, 2021. Staff, are you speaking to this at all, or can I just move?
We're simply here to answer any questions, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Logan, you moving that motion?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jansen has seconded it. Discussion. This is for first and second reading. I'm not seeing any hands. Councillor Logan, could you just lower your hand for me? Sorry. I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. So that's for first and second reading. Moving on to 7.2, bylaw number 1893, land use bylaw number amendment, RBCD 5 zone. Excuse me. Yes. Did I do something wrong?
Mr. Earl has his hand up. I wonder if we should be checked.
Sure. Mr. Earl, what did I do wrong?
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing wrong, Your Worship. Under 7.1, staff were recommending that the first and second reading of bylaw 1892, amendment 182 be rescinded. And then a second motion was sought for first and second reading as amended.
Thank you. My apologies. I should read both the motions. So we're going to go, thank you for that correction. So I'm going to go back, council, and I'm just going to assume with the mover and seconder that the recommendation that was moved and seconded is the first one, which is that the first and second reading of bylaw number 1892, cited as Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, amendment number 182, CD 28, Zone Area 5, bylaw number 1892, 2021, be rescinded. So I have that motion, and that's going to be the mover and seconder that we just had. Is there any discussion? Councillor Logan, I see your hand up. Do you wish to discuss?
No, I'm just waiting to move the next motion, Your Worship.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I'll call the question. Those in opposition? I'm going to assume, Councillor Logan, even though your hand's up, you're not in opposition.
Sorry.
Sorry. So nobody opposes. Well, this is quite a show tonight we got going here, kids. So moving on to the second recommendation, which is that bylaw number 1892, cited as Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, amendment number 182, CD 28, Zone Area 5, bylaw number 1892, 2021, be given first, second reading as amended. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Jansen. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in opposition? No one opposes. That motion passes. Now I will move on to 7.2, which is bylaw number 1893, land use bylaw amendment RBCD 5 zone Royal Bay, and this is for first and second reading. May I get a mover and seconder, please?
No.
Clearly. Thank you, Councillor Baxter. You're very brave. Councillor Logan has seconded it. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.3, bylaw number 1894, Colwood, Maine, a sewer LAS enlargement for 3116 Wood Park Drive. This is for adoption. Moved by Councillor Baxter, second by Councillor Jansen. Discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.4, bylaw number 1895, Colwood, Maine, sewer LAS enlargement for 680 Townview Terrace. This is for adoption. Moved by Councillor Baxter, seconded by Mayor Martin. Discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.5, bylaw number 1896, Colwood West sewer LAS enlargement for the same address. This is for adoption. Moved by Councillor Baxter, second by Councillor Jansen. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Thank you, nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.6, bylaw number 1897, land use bylaw amendment. This is the 2021 omnibus amendments. This is for first and second reading. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Baxter. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.7, bylaw number 1898, land use bylaw amendment. This is a cannabis retail at 1905 Souk Road for first and second reading. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Baxter. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.8, bylaw number 1899, Colwood, Maine sewer LAS enlargement for 3150 Wishart Road. This is for first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Baxter. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition, please raise your hands. Nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.9, bylaw number 1901, Colwood, Maine sewer LAS enlargement for 3434 Grattan Road. This is for first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Baxter. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition, please raise your hands. Nobody opposes. Excuse me. 7.10, bylaw number 1902. This is Colwood South sewer LAS enlargement for the same address. This is for first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Logan. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.11. This is bylaw number 1904, Colwood, Maine sewer LAS enlargement for 551 Cedar Crest Drive. This is for first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Mayor Martin. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Moving on to 7.12, bylaw number 1905, Colwood Main Sewer LAS enlargement for 543 Cedar Crest Drive. This is for first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Baxter, second by Councillor Logan. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in opposition, please raise your hands. Nobody opposes. Motion to adjourn. Well, he got in there with a verbal tonight. All right, we're still giving it to Councillor Logan. Those in opposition, please raise your hands. I see Councillor Jansen and opposes, but that's okay. It still passes. Thank you all, and very much, Council. I appreciate your good nature tonight. There was a little bit of teasing going on. I really appreciate that we can have some fun doing this as well. This doesn't need to just always be so dry and serious. So thank you for your patience in making this an enjoyable night. Councillor Baxter specifically, we seem to pick on you a lot tonight. So thanks for your good naturedness. All right, thanks everybody, and we will see you next time.
Not me.
Good night, everybody. Oh yes, good night.